Have you ever really stopped to think about what it takes for a company to, well, to truly make it, to reach the absolute peak? It's easy to think of a company going public as just some big financial deal, right? But it is so much more than that. It's really the business world's version of climbing Mount Everest. It's this brutal, revealing, and completely life-changing journey. So let's start that climb together and see what it's really all about.
So what is that ultimate test anyway? I mean, is it creating a product that people just absolutely love? Or maybe it's turning a profit year in and year out, or just surviving a really tough economy. Look, all of those are huge challenges for sure, but there's one single event that takes all of that and cranks the pressure up to 11 in one massive all or nothing moment. And that moment? It's the initial public offering, or the IPO. And this is not just about selling some stock. No way. This is about taking a founder's private dream, something they probably built in a garage fueled by late nights and way too much coffee, and putting it out there on the world's biggest stage for absolutely everyone to judge, to pick apart, and ultimately to own a little piece of. Now, to really get a feel for just how huge this whole thing is, we've got to understand the massive shift a company goes through when it takes this great leap. I mean, it is a total change of identity. Okay, so on paper, an IPO is just the process where a private company sells shares to the public for the very first time and then gets listed on a stock exchange like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ. Simple, right? But what that simple definition doesn't tell you is that the consequences of that one action are just absolutely massive. Let's think about it like this. A private company, it's kind of like a cozy family workshop. Ownership is kept in a tight circle, all the financial details are secret, and for the most part, you make your own rules. But going public, that's like throwing the workshop doors wide open and turning it into this giant, chaotic, open-air market. All of a sudden, anyone can be an owner, all your financial secrets get broadcast to the world every 3 months, and now you're playing by a super strict set of rules under the brightest, most intense spotlight you can imagine. So, why on earth would anyone sign up for all that exposure? Well, the reasons are pretty powerful. An IPO can raise a just staggering amount of cash, practically overnight. We're talking money to fuel huge new projects, pay off old debt, or hire tons of new people. And, just as big a deal, it creates a way for the early believers, the founders, the first employees, the early investors, to finally cash in on all their hard work and risk. But yeah, getting your hands on that kind of money and prestige is not easy. The road to ringing that opening bell is an absolute gauntlet, a whole series of incredibly intense trials that are basically designed to prove whether or not a company is truly ready for the big leagues. The whole thing really boils down to 4 key steps. First, you've got to hire some seriously powerful investment banks to be your guides. They're called underwriters. Then comes the really revealing part. You have to file this monster document called the S-1. After that, the execs hit the road for what's called a roadshow, basically pitching their company to all the big money investors. And finally, in this super tense meeting the night before the big day, they decide on the price. Let's really focus on that S-1 filing for a second, because this document is, for all intents and purposes, a mandatory public confession. It forces the company to pull back the curtain on absolutely everything, the good, the bad, and yes, the ugly. Their whole business model, their real financial health, every single risk you can think of. It's all laid out for anyone, competitors, reporters, you, to dissect. Just look at this quote. It's straight from Airbnb's S-1 filing. It shows you just how intense this is. In a section literally called Risk Factors, they are legally required to list out everything that could possibly go wrong. And here they are, admitting that their reputation itself is one of their core financial risks. I mean, that is the level of brutal honesty that's required. Okay, so this brings up a really important question for pretty much all of us. Now that every single secret is out in the open, can a regular person, like you or me, get in on the action and buy some shares at that first official offering price? Well, the short answer is probably not. It's really unlikely. See, the huge majority of those initial shares go to massive institutional investors. We're talking hedge funds and to the investment bank's richest clients. The banks do this because they want to place big chunks of stock with people they think are going to hold on for a long time and create some stability. That leaves this tiny little slice for individual or retail investors. And it is just that, tiny. All of which leads us finally to the moment of truth. This is the big finale. After months or even years of all that hard work, the very first day of trading.
So on IPO day, the stock finally hits the open market. The company's ticker symbol flashes up on the screen, that famous bell rings, and for the first time ever, anyone with a brokerage account can just click buy. This is where most people get their first shot. But here's the catch. The price isn't that fixed IPO price anymore. Nope. It's now a living, breathing number that's being driven completely by public supply and demand.
And the prize for making it this far? It can be absolutely mind-blowing. Just to give you an idea, back during the market boom in 2021, the average IPO brought in over $350 million. That is a truly game-changing amount of money that can alter a company's path forever.
It's so easy to get caught up in all the hype, you know? You see a big IPO pop on that first day and you think, wow. But does getting in early on a hot new stock actually guarantee you a great long-term investment? Well, the data tells a much more complicated and honestly a much more sobering story. So, what really happens after all the champagne has been popped and the confetti is swept away? Let's get real for a second. This data compares the average return of IPO stocks 3 years after they go public against the return of the overall stock market. And the results are pretty startling. One analysis found that a shocking 2/3 of IPOs actually did worse than the market average over that time. That initial excitement often just fizzles out, and that's when the real long-term challenge begins.
And that brings us to maybe the most important point of all. An IPO isn't the end of the story. It's not the finish line. It's really the starting line of a whole new race, one that's in a lot of ways much, much harder.
See, being a public company is this permanent trade-off. On the one hand, yes, you get rocket fuel to grow your business, a lot of public prestige, and a big payday for your early team members. But what you give up is huge. Founders lose some of their control. The company is under constant, relentless scrutiny from Wall Street, and the cost and headache of reporting your results every single quarter is just immense. So what's the bottom line here? What are the big things to take away from our climb today? First, an IPO is a tool for growth, not just a cash-out plan. Second, getting in at that initial price is a real long shot for most of us. Third, you've got to know that IPOs are high-risk investments that historically often lag behind the rest of the market. And maybe most important of all, going public is a forever promise to be transparent and accountable to the entire world. In the end, going public really is just like reaching the summit of that mountain. It's this incredible achievement, something absolutely worth celebrating. But reaching the top, that's not the end of the journey. It's the beginning of having to learn how to live up there in the clouds, where the air is thin, the weather can change in an instant, and every single move you make is seen by the whole world watching from below.